The Dandadan anime was announced at the end of last year, and I couldn't be happier. I personally binged through the manga last year myself, and I can confidently say that this is the best manga I've read in 2023. And this statement doesn't come easy for me, especially after reading other top-notch bangers like Akane Banashi and Hira Yasumi, both excellent mangas that I think you should also read. But I've already made videos about those. So we're shifting our focus onto what I think might be the best manga I've read in 2023. Now, it's important to mention now that I will be spoiling some plot points here and there. If you are looking to get into the series, I recommend going in as blind as possible, but I do want to mention that the first chapter got that classic, manga needs to capture as many people's attention shock value, and that kind of shock value will not happen again in the future. Please read the manga, it's so good. When considering what makes Dandadan so unique, it's kind of difficult to put into words. But to summarize the early plot for a minute to set the tone, it follows our dual protagonist Momo Oyase, who comes from a psychic family lineage, and Ken Takakura, later nicknamed Okarun because he shares the same nickname as Momo's celebrity crush, and his existence is an insult to the actual cool Ken Takakura. But while Momo is somewhat okay in her social standing at school, Okarun is not, and it's through Momo's gesture of kindness that they get to talking. Okarun is obsessed with aliens, believing them to be real, while Momo believes in ghosts. They scoff at each other's beliefs and they make a bet to see which one is real, but much to their horror, turns out both aliens and ghosts are real, with both the Turbo Granny and Alien being obsessed with reproduction. The two encounters prove to be incredibly dangerous as the Turbo Granny yokai possesses Okarun and Momo is chained against her will by the aliens. But it's thanks to getting possessed and Momo's family being tied to spirits and the psychic abilities that they're able to free themselves and they go on with their day? That was a half-truth. As it turns out, without Momo's psychic abilities suppressing the Turbo Granny's possession, Okarun gets completely taken over. And the only way to fix this? Finding his golden balls, his family jewels, which have now become the centerpiece for wacky plot lines like galactic wars, fights against the unnatural, and cultists that worship a giant sandworm. This all sounds incredibly random, but it's this confidence that the author, Yukinobu Tatsu, has in both his writing and characters that makes Dandadan, well, Dandadan. There's so much charm in his world, his characters and plots, that you can't help but be sucked away at the wackiness of what this story has to offer. And it's perhaps why, while I was reading the manga, I never questioned why there is a mantis shrimp alien, but instead I asked, I wonder what the mantis shrimp can do. The world is built in such a way where these things, while surprising, aren't actually out of place. I think this point is best illustrated in the current arc, Unjizuma arc, and a little bit before, where, after the events of exercising a ghost to the power of idol culture, the story shifts to delinquents being the main driving force, to it being a Jumanji-like isekai game, with all these plot points happening in the span of like 5 chapters. And even in the Jumanji game, the antagonist of the week happens to be a chef frog who turns out to be paper crafts that all work for a bigger chef boss. And I know this sounds completely random, out of pocket even, but for those that have read the series knows that this makes sense. I'm never lost in the plot or asking, how did this happen? It's always, I wonder what's gonna happen next. This is all thanks to how well grounded the story is laid out. The author never forgets to actually tell the story that he wants, which is grounded in common Shonen Jump themes of family, friends, and love. That while we may have epic moments like a Godzilla mech suit fighting against the alien overlords that are trying to take over the planet, that we're cheering on the main characters to win in these moments, not because it's cool, but because of the backstory of the moms that gave up their lives to see their daughter live. And of course, it's not just the plot lines that make this series so good. The characters are just as good, especially our likable dual protagonist. Okarun starts off as a timid, shy individual, but thanks to Momo and her antics, he starts to become brave, he starts to become confident, and his goals become that of wanting to protect not only Momo, but his friends. He starts to take action and his decisions on certain matters are mature. His development as a character is directly tied to the time both Momo and Okarun shared together. Meanwhile, Momo, thanks to Okarun, starts to become more in tune with who she is as a person. It's thanks to Okarun's antics that she was even able to open up her powers that her grandma had taught her many years ago, just like how he's also the reason as to why she's starting to get better with expressing her true intent and feelings instead of bottling it all up. And this all culminates to a beautiful moment in one of my personal favorite arcs. It also just doesn't stop there with our protagonist. There are so many characters in this series, all with their own unique powers, strengths, and arcs, that it feels virtually impossible to not have a character that you don't like. This might be personal bias, after all, one of the other online handles that I go by is GG, but GG is one of my favorite characters. He's shown off to be this crazy, good-looking, cool guy and Momo's first crush, but turns out he's just a giant goofball. His introduction into the series is to give Okarun some competition in gaining Momo's affection, but his plot as a character goes even deeper when he feels empathy for the evil eye that possesses his body. You see, the evil eye was born and abused. His idea of play is to fight and kill, and he died incredibly early because of that. But it's thanks to this power that they were able to beat the Sandworm cultists. But it's his empathy that lets the evil eye live, since it never got to have the childhood that it was looking for. And Okarun notices this and helps Gigi work with the spirit by promising to play with it in the future. The artwork also reflects back on how much the author loves his characters, where for every badass moment that a character might have, the next panel might just have your favorite character with the most goofy expression possible. It's one of the highlights of Dandadan. Tatsu is not scared to make his characters feel a little funny, especially if it means that we're staying to see the rest of the panel, or to make a character's intent that much more clear. And I think that's the point. The main focus is not on the crazy intergalactic plot lines, but rather on how the characters interact and grow as people over time, as we the readers get to observe blooming relationships and friendships. The house turning into a Power Ranger Mechazord is only an engine to explore another character's struggle and how he finally found a place he feels like he can fit into. So therefore, while the series will only introduce more and more characters and bigger plot lines, the baseline of the series exudes so much confidence in each of the characters' relationships that it makes you come back for more. Of course, throughout my love letter to this series, there were bits and points where I'm exaggerating, and maybe you think that some of my points aren't fair. To be quite honest, it's okay if you disagree with everything that I say. After all, it's only how I feel. But if there is one thing that I want you to take away from this video, it's the fact that I really believe in this series, and I'm excited for the anime, and I cannot wait to see what's next. This has been JaeAIK, thanks for watching, subscribe for more random content, and I hope to see you guys next time.